Hi everyone. So my lesson is on the Diary of Anne Frank and the important role that setting plays in the novel. So because my lesson was focused more around visuals and discussion, I can't exactly show you that in the PowerPoint. So I'm going to try my best and try to explain as much as I can what I planned on doing. So we're going to start out with our objectives and goals today. So students will be able to clearly picture the setting of the novel, gain a deeper understanding of the Holocaust and the characters' experiences, and connect the effects that history and setting had on the characters. So, what do we already know? This is where we're going to set up a timeline of how this all began. The teaching of Anne Frank usually coincides with World War II lessons in U.S. history. If that's not the case, students usually have background knowledge of the Holocaust, World War II, and will previously have plot and character knowledge. So, this is an opportunity for you to share with the class what you already know about the war and Holocaust. So, questions like how did the war start? When did Anne's family go into hiding? And when did the war end? Will help guide the discussion. So students will use this time to go up to the whiteboard to write important events down into a timeline. I planned on the timeline looking something like this. So the setting of the novel mainly takes place in Amsterdam in the Netherlands. And an important piece of information to keep in mind is that in 1940, Otto Frank actually rented the entire building, so the main house and the annex from the Piran family. And the Piran family did not know that there were people in hiding in the secret annex. In the picture on the right, as you can see, would be a layout of the building. So the ground floor housed the workshop of the company, and the first and second floors were turned into storage and office space. The annex was located in the top right part of the building, and the office was located in the left side of the building. So this is the outside view of the building, and the building actually sits on a canal. So with the information from the last slide and the picture on this slide, what do you think are some risks that the people in hiding faced by choosing this location? Obviously, the amount of traffic and people walking the street and even going down the river every day would be a risk, as well as some of the people coming in to work. Also, the fact that the owners themselves had no idea that there were 8 people hiding in their own building adds another layer on top of the danger that they already faced. So, this link at the bottom of the slide takes you to a virtual tour of the secret annex. And within this tour are videos and the ability to click on certain objects in the room deemed important to those that lived there. And because of restrictions with PowerPoint, I can't give you the exact experience of physically going through the annex, but I was able to include pictures of the rooms I planned on going through and will try to explain the process as best as I can. This virtual tour shows exactly what these spaces would have looked like while the families lived there. The first room you see is the entrance to the annex, which is the bookcase. As we look through this room, why do you think the entrance was hidden with a bookcase? This would have been a great way to hide the entrance into the annex, and anyone going through the building would think that it was used by people working in the office. There's also another reason why. So, when the Franks first went into hiding, the Nazis threatened to carry out house searches if the Dutch continued to refuse to hand in their bicycles. Bicycles were valuable assets in wartime, which is why the Nazis would have wanted them. So when you click on the door button that is on the bookshelf, it takes you into a small hallway with two doors and a staircase. The first room to the left is the room that was occupied by Edith, Frank, and Margot. This is exactly what the room would have looked like when the Franks were staying here. So there are multiple speech bubbles that you can click on that go into depth about the objects in the room. There are also multiple videos offered in this room. So we are going to watch a short video that gives you an idea of what a day looked like in the annex.
In the secret annex, Anne's day began at 7:15. She would take the screens down from the windows, and then the morning ritual in the bathroom would start, as one by one the group in hiding prepared for the day. There was a strict schedule, because by 8:30 the annex had to be completely silent. That was when work began for the staff of the warehouse. They didn't know there were people hiding in the secret annex. Because the group's helpers in the office had not yet arrived, any sound might betray them. Even the toilet was a no-go area, as the soil pipe ran right through the warehouse.
Shh, Father. Quiet, Otto. Shh. Pim, it's 8:30. Come here now. You can't run the water anymore. Walk quietly.
Even after the helpers started work in the office above the warehouse, the people in hiding still had to be quiet. By then, any noises from the hiding place heard in the warehouse would seem to come from the offices. They would spend the rest of the morning reading, studying, and preparing lunch. Anne was doing a stenography course together with Margot and Peter, and also learned French, German, algebra, and history. At 12:30, the warehouse workers would go out to lunch. The helpers and the people in hiding would eat together in the annex. Then, at 1 o'clock, they would turn on the radio for the latest news from the BBC. The helpers would stay until about 2:45, then go back to work. At that point, the people in hiding could have a nap. Anne used the time to study and to write. By about 4 o'clock, it was time for coffee and dinner preparations would start. The warehouse workers went home at 5:30. Their helper Bep Voskau usually popped in after that to ask if any of them needed anything. When she, too, had left for home at 5:45, the people in hiding would spread out throughout the building. With everyone gone, they could emerge safely from their hiding place and even go into the front section of the building. Herman Van Pels would check the day's mail. Peter Van Pels fetched the bread left for them in the office. Otto Frank typed, presumably business letters. Margot and Anne did some office work for the helpers, such as filing letters, and August Van Pels and Edith Frank would cook the evening meal. They also washed themselves in the office kitchen, the only available hot water. After dinner, the group would read or chat or play games. The windows were blacked out as evening fell, and preparations for the night began at 9. Furniture had to be moved to make rooms ready to sleep in. Just as in the morning, the group followed a strict schedule for the bathroom, one after another. Anne's turn was from 9 to 9:30. After that, the secret annex gradually fell silent.
Okay, so after watching this video, what do you think are some of the biggest challenges that they faced while living in the annex? So some of the answers could be not being able to use the bathroom or water before the office workers arrived, having to be almost completely silent for majority of the day, and not having available hot water in the annex. So the Frank family went into hiding on July 6, 1942. When Otto Frank returned from Auschwitz in June of 1945, the annex was empty and barren. In 1960, the Anne Frank House opened its doors as a museum, but at Otto's request, the annex stayed empty. In an interview in 1962, he said, "After the Anne Frank house had been restored, they asked me if I wanted to have the rooms refurnished. But I said no. They took everything out during the war, and I want to keep it that way." This is what the Anne Frank house looks like today after it was restored. As you can tell, it looks completely different from what it had in the virtual tour. As we're coming to the end of class, I wanted to do a quick exit ticket for you to turn in. So after seeing the virtual tour of the annex and seeing what the museum looks like today, write down on a piece of paper why you think Otto Frank did not want to refurnish the rooms. Personally, I think that Otto wanted to have the Anne Frank house look more like a museum than a shrine to his family and friends. Although he did help design the virtual tour of the house to make it look like it originally did, I think having a virtual reminder of what I imagine to be a place of suffering for him is much easier to cope with and talk about than physically restoring the annex. So, your assignment for tonight is that you will finish the tour of the annex, pick a room, and write 1 to 2 paragraphs about this room. I want you to think about how we discussed the tour in class today and how you answered the exit ticket. I also want you to keep in mind a lot of the information I gave you today during our PowerPoint. You can also ask yourself a few of these questions to help you guide your writing. So, who lives here? What is inside? Are there any bubbles on specific objects? And if so, what makes this object so important, whether it be historical or a personal item? So, what do the objects in the room say about the person who lives here? You will share your responses in groups of 3 to 4 tomorrow at the beginning of class before turning in this assignment. So that is all I have. Thank you guys for watching and listening.